one and all, and welcome back to another thrilling episode of Off the Dome. I'm your humble interviewer, Jordan Brown. With me for the very first time is our amazing animator. Say hi, amazing animator.
Hi, amazing animator.
Do you want me? We should have asked beforehand. Do you want me to call you Blue for the interview?
Yeah, Blue's
great.
fine. I think a lot of people know I'm called Harry, but
yeah,
whatever's most comfortable.
I'm such a huge fan. This is I pointed to the wrong side of my screen. Who knows what it'll look like in the post edit? But this is the actual person. I did not just put up a picture of Deep Blue Ink and then pretending to have a conversation with him, which is not something that I would put past me doing. There has been no face reveal yet, so you are still shrouded in the mystery of this beautiful character. I don't know what you call it.
Beautiful big bunts. Yeah, I mean, in my mind, this is Blue. This is as much Blue as I am Harry, but also this is as close I can get to animating live. So
it's fantastic. My first question, right out the gate, are the glasses getting bigger? Everyone wants to know.
Oh, what a question to start off with. It's been chasing me for years now. I mean, the first MBMBaM animated I did, which is this is a reference to, a fantastically old reference to, was like 2020? Yeah, it must have been. I think we'll end the interview.
Great, perfect, exactly. I do see behind you. I think it is a MBMBaM frame.
It is.
I don't know it. Yeah, it is. I literally just watched it right before. I cannot tell you how many times my wife and I have watched that specific video. And I mean, look, we love yours a lot. We have watched every single animated version of it.
So many.
It's the funniest thing I've ever seen.
It's so good.
I think what sets yours apart is the Porky Pig vibrating under the desk. It destroys me. But yeah, so good. It's just
I thank my lucky stars every day that I got to that clip first, because I think there's like at least 4. I know Louis Zong got to it about a month after me.
Yeah,
and I think every day, like if he just pulled his finger out just a little bit quicker, none of this would have happened. That's framed behind me in my fictional studio because that was like the starting point. And I think, like I say, if Louis Zong had have just got there a bit faster.
Because I mean, Louis has the added benefit of doing a lot of audio editing as well to make it like so crisp and clean and like so fast. But I do love yours because I love your I love also the other part of your edit that I love is the title card of one advert that Travis desperately did not want to end later, as Griffin's lifting it up to come back. And then, I mean, just the cherry on top, the 3 wrong voices at the end is so good and such a funny touch. As I was watching it,
it's born out of honesty as well. I think. Yes. I mean, Louis Zong was the one that got me into MBMBaM. It was his ice cream truck animation.
Oh my god!
Brown, that famous ice cream flavor brown. And for the first month or 2 of listening to MBMBaM, I could not tell Travis and Justin apart in the slightest.
Yeah, I think the huge savior for me is I listened to Taz before I listened to MBMBaM.
That would do it.
And because they were so different there, I was able, like, when I jumped into MBMBaM, I didn't have that problem. And I was stunned that people did. And I was like, it's a bit. And then, like, I knew so many people like, I can't tell their voices apart. It's like, oh, okay, I'm the weird one. But we're here for something more important. I don't know if there's anything more important than you might think Porky Pig because I was porking so much, because it's genuinely the funniest thing I think I've ever seen, and I love that there's so many animated versions of it. But we're here because Deep Space Discounts, a new animated series that you are making. I was going to say producing, but like you're doing it. You're the guy.
It's my baby. It's announced today potentially as this goes out.
Yes. I will not be hitting publish until I've seen the announcement go out.
I'm glad you said that, because there is 4 days before today is today. We're recording on Monday. I don't think I've really heard very many people say the words deep space discounts out loud. So that was quite a scary one for me.
Yeah. Yeah, you sent me a little trailer as well as a press release, which God, I appreciate so much. A press release is my favorite thing in the world because then I can just be like, great, I don't have to like pause the trailer and be like, what's that name? Like I can just be like, here's a list of names. God, I can go to IMDb and look them up. But the trailer, people are going to lose their minds.
Because, I really hope so.
One, it looks fantastic, but you got BDG, and good God, the internet loves him so much.
Really
and like I recently made a video about he's one of the people on Nobody Asked, the new Dropout show that dropped last Friday. Yeah, and I made it like when the trailer came out, I made a video about it, and people were like, "BDG's at Dropout now," and I was like, "He's been there for like over a year. Like, yeah, you've missed quite a bit."
Did you reply to any of the comments starting with actually?
I did not. Mostly because I just don't like replying to comments. Because at some point there's too many, and I'm just like, I'm too tired. It hits a threshold after a video of mine has been up for like a day or so, where I'm just like, I'm not replying to comments anymore. I don't care, unless they're either very mean to me or very kind to me.
You don't reply to the mean ones, do you?
Sometimes, like, well, we were just discussing this. So I made a video last week about Elon Musk buying Hasbro, and my video was like mostly joking about how he would burn it to the ground. And like I thought it was like, I genuinely, like, when I came up with the premise, literally I came up with the premise of, and I'm sure that you have this in like animating as well, of like, here's one funny part, how do I get to where I was like, he would say Widowy a Dwow wizard, and I was like, all right, how do I make an entire video around him saying that? And I had two different people in my comments that are like, you probably don't even play D&D. And I was like, because this is releasing Friday, so I could tell you, like, I'm sitting on that I'm running I'm DMing a one shot, because I to be fair, I have never publicly played D&D. That's not true. I played on the Unprepared Casters charity live stream this past year. I romanced Connie Chung. Like I've dipped my toe, but like
I am more experienced than you can even comprehend. Never played D&D.
Yes, but like I had saved one of the I have drafts for both of the comments. Well, one of them got published and the person deleted their comment, which made me laugh, because Haley Whipjack is going to be at my table today. I announced Christina Ariel. And the other one I think I'm going to use for Iffy, because that feels like a funny one to do. Of like, you've never played D&D, and I'm like, yeah, I'm playing with Iffy in January. But like, I've got like, oh man. So this is also embargoed until Friday. The other three people at that table are Danielle Radford, Abria Iyengar, and Brennan Lee Mulligan. Like,
oh my God, what a cast. What a lineup.
I'm sweating bullets just thinking about it. But like, it's so funny because like I saw those comments and I was like, you can't spoil that you have this table coming up because you have made this promise to yourself that these announcements are rolling out one at a time this week. You can't just leave a comment.
Hold tight.
Yeah, it's tough.
It's going to be so satisfying when you get to link the video.
Yes. But we've been so this is also a thing that happens in my interviews. I get very distracted by nonsense.
No worries.
But Deep Space at Discounts. Deep Space at Discounts, the incarceration alternative program, starts with BDG as DD, which I feel like is perfect casting. That like you get BDG as DD, it just feels like a good like sentence. Doing I mean, as soon as I heard it, I knew it was him, but like, it still felt like a BDG impression, if that makes sense. Like,
yeah, I get that.
It's just like a perfect role for him. Him saying, "Oh, you don't know how you applied to this program," and then laughing, and then being like, "Now that that's cleared up," it was just like a perfect BDG. Like, it felt like 1,000 videos that he has made in a good way.
It was one of these where I was writing all of this before I had any idea who was going to play what. But when I started recording all of the lines, I'd written everything out in scripts, and then I started reading them out myself, so I had some kind of audio that I could do a storyboard to, because I wanted to have like a decent idea of what everything would look like and the kind of timing of the jokes and stuff. So there is a version of all of Deep Space Discounts purely voiced by me, which I'm excited to share at some point somehow.
Is that like six or seven? I mean, 6 or 7 voiced characters that I have on my list here.
Yeah, well, seven voice actors.
Yes.
I'll say very quickly as well up top that Deep Space Discounts is a mini-series. It's going to be five episodes, all original content. It's going to be about 4 to 7 minutes, mostly around 6-7 minutes, I think, for the 5 episodes. But yeah, no, 7 voice actors, each has one character. There's a handful of extras, including Angry Customer 1, played by Bug Hunter, Angry Customer 2, played by Matt from the NASA's Cookbook, Not Angry Customer, played by my wife, who gets thrown across the store very quickly.
It's in the trailer.
It is in the trailer. And one character, well, there's a character played by me as well, who doesn't really have any lines, just kind of noises. There's also an animal that's not in the trailer, who I won't talk about too much, who's voiced by Bo the cat, who is sat down by my side right now.
Love that. That's so funny. Yeah, this is actually really leads me perfectly into like how did this idea come about? Obviously, you just said you were writing the scripts and recording the voices to have storyboards to present. Yeah, like where did Deep Space Discounts come from?
So the whole kind of process, it's been ongoing all my life, in the sense that I every now and then will come up with a great idea for a show in my mind and then completely drop it within an hour. And it's one of these where I came up with this idea for a intergalactic retail store, staffed by convicts, and I thought, right, that's actually an idea that's got legs. I can think of, at least 5 episode ideas in like 10 minutes. And I thought, okay, cool. This actually has a concept. But it more physically came about because Barrett Leddy, who is a professional voice actor, has been on Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, and more importantly, Drawfee, another one of my...
I was going to say, the fans of this interview series will be excited about the Drawfee connection.
Yes. Yeah, me and Barrett Leddy had done a stream together with Drawfee, and he sent me a message at one point just saying, I love your animations, and if at any point you want to do something, just hit me up. And that I think sparked the touch paper where I thought, if there's a voice actor that wants to be involved, maybe I should write something. And then within a month, I think I had an idea and got in touch with him, and he very kindly helped me cast 4 of the other 7, so 5 including himself, not including Brian David Gilbert, who I got in touch directly, and he's the kindest person you've ever met. He's so sweet. Nice.
Yeah,
it's so funny.
Yeah, it's absurd how kind he is, and also just generous with like what is obviously incredibly limited amount of time, because he has so many things that he does.
He sent me an email when I first got in touch with him. He sent an email, I think 3 days later, and said, "I'm so sorry for the delay." I was like, "Brian David Gilbert, hello? No, you're fine."
Yeah.
My God.
Yeah, that's so fun. I love the idea. I love just like a good like short little chunk thing that I can like consume and enjoy. It also makes it feel like it's going to be very rewatchable, and I'm going to guess, based on you as an animator, there are probably going to be little jokes in the background that people will have to look closely for. Do you think that would be a fair assessment?
I think that's a fair assessment, yeah.
As I am looking at a picture of myself on your desk.
Yeah, I think that's, now that you bring that up, a confident thought. It's one of these where I have like a minimum quality that I'm happy to release anything. And I always think that I can lower that. And I'm always like, well, I can probably like release something that's like an animatic or something a little bit more relaxed to give myself more time. And then by the time it gets to clicking the upload button, I'm like, I can't let the world see me at anything other than perfect. Which is why in this interview, I've come up with various different emotions for my character. I don't know why I've got one. There's an angry one in case we get some hard hitting questions.
Yeah, what I'm very famous for.
I don't know if this is backwards on your screen.
It's not.
Fantastic. Just in case, I guess.
Yeah. I appreciate that attention to detail that you spelled my name right. A lot of people don't.
Of course.
I've
actually got a friend who's got the name Jordan spelled the same way, but
really,
his is spelled like that because his dad spelt it wrong on the birth certificate.
Oh, so mine was intentional.
There we are.
My mom combined. She had two brothers, Jeff and Gordon, and she combined them to make Jordan.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah, and I stand firm that my spelling should be the correct spelling because of Gordon. Like they sound the same.
I see it.
And I'm just going to assume that Gordon came first, and I'm not going to look into it. Yeah, it reminds me of like your animation style reminds me of, I don't know if you ever read Sex Criminals, which is not like the comic book sounds way worse than it actually is. It's a brilliant comic book, a comedic comic book, whatever. That's oh my gosh, instantly I forgot the writer's name. It's Matt something and Chip Zdarsky. It's a really famous writer, and now I have to Google it live while I'm trying to figure it out. But the point of this was, it's Matt Fraction. That's who it is. I will say the premise, just for people to know. The premise is
for me as well, please.
Yes, there are some people in the world who, when they have an orgasm, it freezes time, and so they commit crimes while time is frozen. So they're not like sex criminals. Like I have to be on a registry. They're literally like we have sex and then commit crimes because we can rob a bank because time is frozen.
Yeah, do sex, do crimes. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. But there's literally like Chip Zdarsky, who's the artist. Will put all of these background jokes in, like, and there's literally like a panel where they're like, "Hey, it's Matt Fraction writing like I was gonna set this in a mall, and I knew it would take Chip 6 months to draw it because he would put so many fake stores in the background that we're just gonna skip ahead until it's outside of the mall." And I feel like you can relate to that. Like I have to put in all of the jokes.
No, I'm obsessed with that. I'm trying to think. I think there's a handful that you can see in the trailer because there's some clips of the intro shot with the cast kind of walking to the right. There's at least a handful you can see, but there's plenty.
I'm really excited. I will not catch most of them, I'm sure. Because it's just not, like the comic book, at least for like with that comic book, I could at least like stare at it, and just be like, all right, it doesn't have to move.
For a split second when you said, I will not, for sure, I was like, because you're not going to watch it? I thought it was a really bold thing to say in the interview.
Yes. I'm not.
I mean, look, I hate
I'm not
animations, but it's interesting to talk about it.
Yeah. I don't care for this deep space discounts nonsense. No, it's just because like as I'm watching, I'm not a person who like pauses to look at the screen most of the time because I am confident that the internet will solve the mystery for me and share it, and I can be like, cool. Now, if I need to talk about that, I'll take a screenshot here.
I find the same myself, where you know how YouTube has like the little blips at the bottom where it kind of shows which bits are most watched. Obviously the videos that I upload are only ever like 2-3 minutes tops, and I'll see like little blips and I'll be like, why is there a blip there? And I'll pause it, and it's because people are trying to read something that I've written in tiny font in the background, and I've completely forgotten that I've done it. I'm like, well, go on, I'll read it as well then. Yeah. And it's like, this is stupid. Why did I write this? And it's like a joke about tabletops and table bottoms.
Oh, man. That's not a stupid joke. That's a fantastic joke that I loved. Yeah, I will say, like, with your videos, because I often do watch them on my phone, I do have a better chance of like catching some of those because it is so close to my face.
Yes.
But yeah, tabletops and table bottoms. One of my other favorites of yours, of like tiny jokes that you put in the background, is Ross and Brennan's accent battle that the menu changed every time it flipped. There's such a beautiful attention to detail in I like the dumbest way feels mean, but I mean that as a compliment.
No. Dumbest way is absolutely correct, a compliment, and taken the right way.
Good.
I think trying to find, I think they accidentally do 2 Canadian accents, or I made that up, or two something accents.
2 Canadian or 2 French, so something that like it was a repeat, because you even animate like someone hovering over the buzzer and someone else like pulling their hand back.
Not yet.
Yeah.
And I had to. I do it quite a lot, but I had to go back to my own Discord and say, are there any Canadians here? What would be a good word for drinks? And they're like, do a Timmy's coffee cup. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I've accidentally got like a good research team behind me for a lot of these visual gags.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like, all right, I don't want to get off deep. I want to get into how you got into this at all, but I don't like I mentioned beforehand. Oh, we're like 20 minutes in. Shit.
That's fine.
No one's I mean, I shouldn't say no one's watching this. People are still watching this. The majority of people have lost at this point. Yeah, I'm really excited. Like you said, that, obviously, like Barrett Letty helped get casting going. You reached out to BDG. I have to imagine it is a little bit easier for you because your content is well known at this point, of like, you're at least in those circles, certainly. Your content for sure is getting shared, right? Like,
I've got a corner of the internet, I would say, and it's a very good corner of the internet. The pipeline from starting as a Mabim Bam animator through to Drawfee. Well, no, Dimension 20 came next, I think, and then Drawfee, and then the rest of Dropout. It's landed me in a very sweet community where all the comment sections are genuinely so lovely, and the 1 in 200 comments that are horrid immediately get hidden and they'll be never heard of again. But yeah, having sorry, what was the question?
I have no idea. Things were easier to get it produced, I think, is what I like. Get people on board because you have a table of work, and that's not the right phrase to show off of like, hey, I'm back on track. It, like you say, having those kind of that recognition in those communities definitely helps. I mean, I never asked, but I can only hope that in that first email to Brian, having a sentence in there, BDG. Oh, it feels weird calling him Brian a BDG. So. But that is what people call him to his face. As someone who has met him, like I called him Brian. I didn't call him BDG.
Hey, BDG. Having a sentence in that first email saying, I'm a huge fan of your work. I have referenced Hugh Brandity constantly for the last year. I've got a following of Dropout fans and this kind of corner of the internet. If this is something you're interested, I know there'd be a lot of overlap type thing. I have no idea if it actually made a difference, but it's certainly nice, especially for my ego. Again, having Jenny Yokobori, the voice of V, audition for the role, but in the audition tell Barrett that she was already a fan of my work was, again, a lovely moment of like, oh good, I don't have to explain that I'm not just like a YouTube to this person. I think that is it. A lot of this process has been fighting imposter syndrome, and to have, the ridiculous backing that I do of over 100,000 or 180,000 subscribers now, to be able to, talk to these industry professionals and say, hi, I really do have like a good following. This is, this isn't just a random, student project or whatever, but it's been useful. I don't know how much as a quantity, I couldn't tell you how useful it's been, but it's certainly been good for my self-esteem going into something as big as this.
I mean, certainly that makes sense. It's funny because like with BDG, it's funny because like it's one of those things where it's like, it's in your head you're like, well, it's impossible that he hasn't seen some of your animations, but also
not for me.
He's so not online, it feels entirely possible that he hasn't, like, because of the circles that like he is in. It feels like someone would have at some point would have been like, hey, you've seen the new like Tommy Shrigley, right? Because you watched that and you enjoyed it. Here's like Deep Blue Ink's like animated version of it, but also like he is so canonically not online
I mean, it's very kind of you to say that. It's not something I feel. I mean, when you first reached out to me ages ago on TikTok, you talked about watching the VIP animateds with Vic. And again, my heart dropped and I was like, Vic's seen these animations? And it happens every single time. The first kind of big commission I got was from the McElroy's business manager. And she went through all these details. We got the process started, and then after the second animation, she asked for some feedback and said, "Oh, Justin McElroy said this and said, could you fix this?" And I was like, "Justin's seen this?" It's the same every time. I think Andrew Bridgman of Dropout said something similar about Brennan asking for a change in one of the Dimension 20 animations, and I was like, "Not the Brennan Lee Mulligan, surely."
Yeah. I know he's the executive producer of the show and that I'm animating a clip from, but he didn't see it.
It doesn't seem right, surely.
Yeah, it's so funny. It's I've also experienced that quite a bit in the last year. As like at a certain point, I had this like because for a long time I was like, Brennan doesn't know who I am, and at a certain point I was like, Brennan knows who I am, and I know that for sure, even though we haven't talked. And I just had to be like, but like like. For me also, I will routinely run into people where I'm like, "Hey, what's up, Chris Grace? Do you want to talk?" And he's like, "I don't know who you are, but okay."
Sure.
Yeah. It's funny because like I think I even talked about this in a video recently where people were leaving comments because I made that stupid Elon Musk video and it's because it has 1 million views, which is too many.
And yeah, it will always be referred to as that stupid Elon Musk video.
Yeah, because it's like 95% bit is the problem, and so many people that are like accelerationism, but D&D, and I was like, you guys get, I didn't actually think this, right? But yeah, like in that comment section, people are like, Brennan Lee Mulligan should buy it, and then I like would click on their profile and they don't follow me. I'm like, do you just say this in every comment section? Do you know that like
you must know?
Like, do you know who I am? And then I made a video about that, and several people were like, "Yeah, I've seen your videos, but I don't follow you." And I was like, "This somehow hurt my feelings more.
This is worse.
Yeah.
This is worse. Yeah,
yeah. You know who I am, and you've chosen not to. Okay, cool." But yeah, it's so funny. Like I read into those same things. I will say, like,
do you find, from a point of being an interviewer, I mean, you've said yourself, and you're quite right, you're a very friendly and very personable interviewer, but do you ever get that feeling of kind of like, oh, I really need to like play the part of an interviewer with these people that I'm such a huge fan of? Because acting as a director for some of these people I've been following for ages, I mean, Brian David Gilbert and Aaron Hansen from Game Grumps especially, having to sit down on a call and be like, "Hello, I'm the director of the show." Like, it's very difficult to kind of get in that headspace, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I do feel that. I think like with this, when I did, because I interviewed Sam last year or this year, almost last year at this point, right? But I interviewed Sam, and that one felt like, all right, this one I need to be able to walk away with something, right? Like I can't just have had like a fun, goofy hour with Sam. Like I need something to have come out of this where like I got a detail that people didn't have beforehand, or it feels like I'm wasting my audience's time, not just like, if it was just like goof them up, whatever, right? Like I just did like a Haley Whipjack interview last week, and I think in the last 30 seconds, I mentioned their newest series for Unprepared Casters. Like it was the first time that I mentioned it because we spent so much time just like dicking around because we're friends. But also they knew going into it that's what it was going to be because we were going to character build for the one shot in January. But yeah, like I mean, you know, like I don't ever feel like it's a like, oh, I need to dig deep, because also like, you know, it's look, I'm never going to be the person that's going to be like, all right, now let's get some like
hard hitting investigative journalism.
Yeah, like my big gets are usually the first question, and it's something so obscure that only myself and the person I'm interviewing understands the reference. And sometimes the person I'm interviewing doesn't understand the reference. And I'm like, even better. Like, I interviewed Ross Bryant and I made a reference to the sketch he is in on I Think You Should Leave. And he absolutely did not know what I was talking about. And I was like, he just answered the question like legitimately. And I was like, yeah, he doesn't know that, this is a reference to his own body of work, but we're just going to move on. But yeah, every once in a while I'm like, oh, I got to get something. Like, or like my audience is going to be like, hey man, I don't want to watch you just like fuck around for an hour. Like, please do something.
This was a lovely chat, but I don't think this is journalism anymore.
But I will say, the Sam interview, I got the first reference to Gastronauts. I got confirmation of VIP season 2. I got that Brennan was going to be the finale of VIP season 1. So like, I got details out of him that were exciting. I also pushed him down from 5 years for Dropout Con to 3 years. And I still had people in the comments that were like, I wish you hadn't spent the entire interview asking for a job. And I was like, that's like 2 bits that I did during the interview. Like, I feel like it wasn't the whole thing. But
if I had got the job, I wouldn't care what you think. So it was a risk worth taking.
But yeah, it's very funny. It's also it's very weird even asking for these interviews, like even asking for an hour of anyone's time. Even like with you, like you have a project to promote. That's always the best case scenario, is someone's like, I actually have a thing I would like to talk about. And like, great.
That was a nice thing, because I think you got in touch. Oh, I don't know if I can talk about Drop In, Drop Out. Talked about.
Yeah, absolutely. We originally talked about Drop In, Drop Out, because I'd reached out to a bunch of people to be like, hey, would you be interested in being on this little podcast show that I'm on as well?
And it hasn't happened for a minute, and you sent another email recently saying, hey, it's still happening, give it some time. Also, would you like to do an interview on my channel? And I thought, oh my god, if we wait like a week, I've actually got something I can talk about that's like hot goss.
Yeah, it was perfect timing. It's always crazy to me how that happens. I will say, like, periodically, like people will be doing a Kickstarter, and I think I'm very good at helping Kickstarters get funded based off of Bitcherton. I think I'm responsible for Bitcherton like closing the fundraising goal, because I interviewed literally everyone from the cast.
I absolutely love Bitcherton. I've watched the first 3 episodes now. 3 episodes, because Gessler's first episode. And Raph and Nathan. And it's so good. Everyone should watch it. It's amazing.
That's delightful. But yeah, like when Izzy Rowland was launching her movie, I desperately was trying to get her to do an interview before the Kickstarter came out, because I was like, she isn't going to need help. It's going to clear it so fast, and then she isn't going to do an interview with me because she won't. It's not that she doesn't care. She because we've chatted before. It's the reason why I was able to reach out in the first place. But I was like, she isn't. Yes, Blonde Mug cares. She isn't going to be like, all right, I need to do press for this to get it over the hump, because it cleared, I think, in an hour or something of like well beyond anything they could have hoped for. And I was like, I got to get in there first. Like,
I've got to be able to help.
I need to schedule interviews before something launches, because if we scheduled this like a week from now, everyone would already be raving about Deep Space Discounts, and you'd be like, well, I don't need to talk to Jordan about it. So that's always the strategy.
I really hope so. It's one of these where it's been so long in the works, and I've been writing it since October last year, Deep Space Discounts, and animating it since I think April this year, that I'm kind of so used to it and so familiar with the characters and all the writing and the shows and the episodes, that I'm now at the point where I'm like, oh god, people are actually going to tell me what they think of it. What if no one cares? Like, it's a terrifying aspect now of, I've spent 3 years building a presence online, making these 2-minute videos, which I can usually animate in the space of about 3 to 6 days. So I usually pump out, one every week. And this thing has spent over a year. It's such a new and kind of scary process for me that I'm really at this point now where I'm like, I hope people like it.
And also, a lot of the clips that you produce are other people's words. And I'm not discounting the fantastic jokes that you do add in. We've already talked about them. But this is, I'm guessing like you probably had some help from the cast, probably did some improvising or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. It was encouraged.
Yes, but like the crux of the show was written by you.
Yes.
Yeah,
no one changed any episodes. No,
right.
No one said actually. No, you're absolutely right. It's the first thing that I've written, certainly on this scale. I've done some original sketch animations. I think there's 4 that I've done are in a series called 15 Ways. So the first one was like 15 Excuses, then 15 Ways to Propose. And then the last one I did was 15 Ways to Meet and Greet Someone, where I got Jacob, my arch rival on the internet, who I've accidentally started beef with from Drawfee, to feature in it. And that was, again, my first real attempt at directing. And it was a case of, oh, well, I may as well do a whole show now. It seems like the logical next step.
It does, and like I said, I mean, I've obviously only seen the trailer, but like the trailer's fantastic.
Thank you.
I love the premise, and like I said, the moment it starts and you hear BDG's voice, I was like, people are going to lose their minds about this.
I've somehow managed to never actually animate Brian, I'm fairly sure. I've had a couple of people recently. This has been in the works since VIP, obviously season 1, and his episode. I can't remember the name of his character, but Brian,
a very good man, Avery Goodman.
Avery Goodman, that's the one. Ever since that came out, everyone's been saying like, "Oh, I can't wait to see Deep Blue Ink animate Brian," or "I can't wait to see what BDG would look like in Blue's style." And I'm like, I mean, you're going to be happy, but also I'm still not going to animate Brian personally.
Yeah. That's very funny. Yeah, I will say, like, in VIP season 1, like, I was talking to Vic almost bi-weekly after every episode. Like, we talked like 7 or 8 times, I think. And at one point, I told them that, like, the Tommy Shrigley video was coming, and they were like such a huge fan of yours already. And I had said to them, like, hey, let's, next time we record, let's watch it together. I think that may have even been their idea. And they were like, yeah, we should watch it together. And like, we'll see it together for the first time. And I was like, great, that'll be so much fun. And then I messaged you something about it, and you're like, Vic is the top comment on the video about it, and it was a minute after the video went live. And
I'm going to hold your hand when I say this. Vic is already the pinned comment.
Yes.
They have done you over royally.
And then I did immediately... I was going to say immediately. I didn't text them to yell at them about it. I waited until we were recording to be like, hey, remember when you said we were going to do this? Have you watched it yet? And they're like, and to their credit, they didn't lie. They were just like, I forgot I said we were going to do that. And the notification went off that the video was live. And I was so excited. I watched it immediately. But I know for that clip, you had to, because you used Tune Boom Harmony. I wrote it down.
Nice.
I know you had to like configure your whole world, right, to like make Tommy Shrigley's head like the size that it is.
It only seemed right that a man that so narrowly resembles a human being should so narrowly resemble a Deep Blue Ink character. It's really rare that I give characters chins. I think it's the first point. I'm sure I'd shrunk down his ears and his hands. But yeah, I think that even went through a stage of research and development with my Patreon supporters, where I sent them a drawing of what I had for Tommy Shrigley and said, is this fucked up enough? Is this right? Or does he look like Tommy Shrigley? And they went, I think you need to go further. So there is like a slightly more rounded version of Tommy Shrigley somewhere.
So good.
But yeah, it's always good. It's one of the things I'm kind of surprised about, that I get quite a lot of comments saying it, even though your art style is essentially a circle and 2 dots, it's remarkable how you always get people to look like who they are, which is something that I hope but can't always tell. So it's always nice to get that.
I mean, it definitely feels that way, of like it's I mean, obviously it helps that their voice is coming out of them.
Yes.
But yeah, it usually, so routinely I'm like, oh yeah, that even if I'm like, oh, I maybe wouldn't have guessed I shouldn't say that. I've never been like, oh, I wouldn't have guessed that was that person. But it so captures their essence as well, of like having enough look like them as a circle person, that you're like, oh yeah, that's Brennan or whoever, right? Like that is that person. Yeah, it's funny because I have some people in my Discord who are patrons of yours, and they've never spoiled anything, but they will come into the Discord to be like, hey, you're going to be really excited about what Blue is doing, like it's cooking up. And the Tommy Shrigley one, they're like, oh man, get ready. So it's always very fun when I'm like, it's like having a little peek into what is coming without having to pay for it, which doesn't feel right as I said it out loud.
No, I think that's fine. I think as long as, and I've never had an issue with this, as long as, like you say, my supporters are kind enough to not actually share the videos, which I've never seen a problem with.
No, I've never seen a video before it's come out. I don't think I've ever even seen like a still screenshot. It's always just like, hey, Blue's working on something cool.
I think having the system I have, which is early access by at most a week, at shortest 4 days, I think it really discourages people from trying to leak stuff, because it's like, this isn't going to matter in 4 days anyway. It's going to be live. And it's why I'm very grateful for so many people supporting me on Patreon, because it really is a case of, you know, supporting me for the sake of supporting me. They don't get a huge amount for their buck, but what they do get, they're very loud and very grateful about, which is amazing.
I'm assuming you have developed a similar community. Like I have a very like strong, good community of people that have like come together over these interviews for reasons that have never been clear to me. But yeah, you know, like even because, you know, I mentioned to you, like by the time this interview comes out, all of the cast announcements will be out for my thing. But like Brennan, Abria, Iffy, and Haley. We're all obviously in the Haley video. But like in the Haley video, I talk about that those are the other, like I name drop those other three people. One, because I was harassing them for headshots still, but also because and this is part of the thing that is only in that interview as well, is that the one shot is going to be set in Umora, Brennan's world from The Wizard, the Witch, and the Wild One, which is just like, what am I doing to have Brennan sit at that table? Brennan and Abria is going to play a Wizard of the Citadel at my table in Umora. I've made mistakes, but I was like, I literally when I posted the interview, I was like, I don't want to have to edit out all of the times that I talk about who else is going to be at the table, because it's a lot. And for the most part, with these interviews, like I might cut out like a chunk where, you know, like, oh, we talked about something that's like not available or not ready to be, you know, but like if it's like, oh, I mentioned Brennan here and then again here and then again here, it's like, God, that feels like so much editing. And so I'm just like, hey, can everybody be cool and keep this under wraps for a week and just not discuss it publicly? Thanks.
At some point, you just have to put a bleep sensor over the name and just be like, you'll learn about it soon. Just to take it for context clues. It's fine.
Yeah, the big one that I got people on recently was I interviewed Anna Garcia, and I had seen Zeke Aaron McKinley early because I was doing press with Vic. Vic was doing a big press day, and so they had sent the episode early to myself and a ton of other people. I think Vic did like 4 hours of 10-minute interviews, like
amazing.
So many interviews. But I happened to get that episode the night before I interviewed Anna. And I was like, oh, this couldn't have been better timing. But I was literally under embargo to not talk about it. And the Anna interview was like that week's interview. So I just like cut out like an 11-minute chunk in the middle where we had talked about it, and then released it after the episode came out. But
it's like such a good episode as well. I mean, Princess Emily was already fantastic, but I think the backbend might have been the funniest moment in VIP for me. There's something about it that's it's so quick and so needless, but it's so good.
Yeah, it's so good. That one, the backbend, as well as
the second wish.
The second wish really got me, but it's Anna saying I killed himself with a rope.
I didn't know if I could talk about this on the interview, but just the like deadpan with a rope.
With a rope. like it destroyed me when I was watching it, and I was just because I was so not prepared for. I mean, I wasn't prepared for any of Zeke.
No.
But yeah, the with a rope, I was just like, oh no, this is so funny. But yeah, it was really fun. The only bummer was Anna knew she was the first episode, because I thought I might get to tell her that she was the first episode, but she knew already. But I was like, I mean, I will say like a wild thing of like I was the exclusive person who talked to Anna about it, because she wasn't doing press for the show. We were there to talk about Fly Me to the Moon and generally other things. I had been trying to talk to her for like 6 months, and she's just very busy. But yeah,
she's doing press for VIP now. It's too late.
Yes. I say you mentioned obviously like VIP is one of my favorite things that you've animated. Just because I love that show so much. I mentioned this to Vic when I was talking to them about season 2. I was like, I was a little worried that season 2 wouldn't be as good as season 1, because I've been so loudly an advocate for the show that I was like, shit, what if the second season's not good and I just have to pretend like it is? And then obviously like I saw Zeke and I was like, oh, it's gonna be fine.
No, we're good. Like, we're fine.
The rest of the episodes could be terrible, and I would say like Jacob's episode is in no way terrible. It's mind-blowingly weird in the best possible way, but I was like, the rest of the episodes could be terrible, and Zeke is good enough that that the season is still a triumph.
Fully expecting a Zeke spin-off at some point. I mean,
oh man, so good. You said, you mentioned you can animate these things in like 3 to 6 days, which feels insane that you can move at that speed. Is it just like you've built a rig that is designed for that so well that like you're like, how that's the question, Blue. How did you do it?
That's a very kind response, and also you're mostly there. It's the character rig is, you know, the backbone of all these animations. It's pretty much every character that I've made for any of these animations started off as Griffin McElroy, who then, when I stopped animating MBMBaM as much, became Jacob Drawfee, who then slowly became the default man for everyone, essentially. There's one of these actually, and you can see it, in fact, on screen right now. If you look above my left lens as you're looking at it, you can see there's a little clip that connects the circle, so it's not a perfect circle. There's a little bump, and that bump is in every single character in any animation of mine, and I've always thought maybe at some point I should clean it up, but it feels so personally integral now, even though I don't think I've ever talked about it or anyone has ever noticed it.
Amazing.
But yeah, it's one of these where I think I definitely prioritized speed at the start of doing this more seriously. The channel itself has existed for about 8 years, I think, and funnily enough, started off as an ASMR channel at university, and I took up animation during my second year because we didn't have Wi-Fi and I needed a hobby that took up lots of time. It was one of these that it was actually during COVID. I got furloughed, so I was told to stay home from work. Was very kindly paid an amount of my wage. And after playing Animal Crossing for about a month straight, one of my friends said, "Oh, at least you've got like your animation hobby to fall back on." And I went, "Oh God, I forgot I animate." So I picked that up again. And I think the third animation I did during lockdown was Porky Pig, which did very well. Brought in at least 2 people asking for commissions, and at that point I had like a full-blown panic attack of, oh my God, I could make money from this, I could actually do this. And within a year from that, I'd quit my job and pursued it full-time, which is, in absolutely no uncertain terms, thanks to College Humor contracting me for the 6 Dimension 20 animations that I did at the time.
Yeah, how did that come about? Is it just like they let me guess, because I've heard the story from multiple people. You got a DM that was like, "We love your work," and you were like, "Is this real?"
Well, even better than that, I think I got I think another Deep Blue Ink got a DM instead. There was another artist called Deep Blue Ink who got a DM and sent me a message very kindly saying, "Hi, I don't know if it's real, but I got a message from College Humor saying they're interested in commissioning you. I thought I'd let you know." Luckily, they'd already emailed me at the same time, so I knew it was real and was very happy. But yeah, no, I mean, they commissioned me, like I say, for a Dimension 20 animated at the same time as Harry Klavan, who is also a Mabimbam animator. So I can put 2 and 2 together and presume that following Tiny Heist's success, they thought, let's see if we can, commission a Mabimbam artist to do something for us. It was just a one-off to begin with. They just asked for the one. Did the one. A lot quicker than I think Andrew Bridgman was expecting, unsurprisingly. And then off the back of that, he gave me a contract asking for another batch of them. And that batch, like I say, was enough for me to think, okay, well, even if, YouTube deletes my channel, even if I get no more commissions, if I quit my job, this contract will, pay for rent for the next month or two or whatever it was. And I thought, okay, well, I don't like my job. I'll quit my job. So I quit my job and thought, if this all, goes Pete Tong, I will just, go back to working in a shop. A very similar shop, I should say, to Deep Space Discounts. I think legally I probably can't say which shop, but if you're British, it's a tech store. You'll be able to figure it out. And I would say Deep Space Discounts as a fictional store isn't the most reputable, so I'm not going to say the name of the store.
Yeah, that's fair.
But
but there are some real world connections that people maybe could put together if they wanted to.
I showed Deep Space Discounts to one of the only friend I've kept from working at that store, and she looked at it and went, "Oh my god, this is literally the same shop. I can see where the stairs are. That's the exact same. You've not done anything." I was like, okay, I can't let anyone else know. But yeah, it's not
so funny.
It's not one-to-one in terms of characters, but there's a lot of influence. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, as there should be. That's art imitates life. That's what they say, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's so funny though. Yeah, I obviously, like, in those years, right? Yes. Since like you quit your job, started animating full time. You've seen considerable growth. I think is a fair assessment. What other than like Deep Space Discounts, do you have something else? Like, I'm assuming you have other projects in mind where you're like, oh yeah, like, once I hit another threshold, like, I'm ready. Obviously, I'm assuming Deep Space Discounts season 2 through infinity. But
I would love that. It's one of these where, again, I'm still fighting the fear of, oh, no one's going to watch this. So it's one of these where the thing that I always say is I've always got these really lofty ideas and visions for what Deep Space Discounts could be. Mm-hmm. But before I say anything, I always caveat it with, if people like it, I would like this to happen. I would like to do this. It's one of these where, I mean, like I say, this whole show at the minute is 5 shorts, I think is fair to call them. 7 minutes is a long short, but it's still a short.
Yeah.
And, I was able to do that myself. I was able to write it, animate it, the music, everything myself. In an ideal world, if enough people like this show and enough people buy merch of it, or if people ask for some kind of crowdfunding, I would love to have the money to bring on extra writers to, touch on things that I am not personally equipped to touch on, for example. But at the same time, I can't think like that. I can't, I have to presume that on Friday, today, as you're watching this, viewer, the video has 5 views, and that's fine. And it's been a lovely year, and I've really enjoyed having these Zoom calls, but I will, pack it back up and move on with my life.
Yeah. Oh man. I mean, obviously that's not going to happen, but oh boy, do I understand that fear of just like, oh, I posted this interview and like the clip, because most of the time I clip things out to TikTok. and the algorithm there is a mystery that no one understands. I don't know why my dumb Milan video has 1 million views. But like it's one of those things where I'm like, oh no, I talked to you about your very cool project and it got 150 views. Like, do I have to email you and apologize? Like, I don't know what to do.
The worst thing for it is I'm quite, apart from in these interviews, obviously, I'm quite good at subduing grand visions for the show. I'm quite good at saying, this has been 5 episodes. Best case scenario, enough people like it that it justifies me doing this again for another 5 short episodes. No extra writers, no extra animators, just me. I can do this. I've done it before, I'll do it again. And then I'll talk to my brother, who will say, Harry, I can't wait for the national press to take this up and then Netflix to sign this. I'm like, okay, well, that's not helped, has it?
No, we can do. This will be the first animated show on Dropout. They can't afford it, but they'll figure it out anyway. And 6 seasons in a movie, obviously.
6 seasons in a movie.
That's what we're doing. It's the first time anyone's ever said those words together. I
forgot to mention, Danny Pudi did write all of this.
Perfect. We really should have led with that because we are now in the last minute of the interview, the least watched part, where I say, if people somehow are watching this and don't already follow you on the internet, where can they find you?
Oh, you can find me literally, I think, everywhere now. Main place is YouTube. I should say that all of my videos go up on YouTube. Most of my videos go up on TikTok, but in a awful aspect ratio where I have to cut
is that
half
a nightmare
of the
for you?
jokes.
I assume that's a nightmare for you.
A little bit, yeah. I just have to decide which half of the screen is funniest a lot of the time.
That's fair.
And then in terms of social media, I'm mainly on Blue Sky now. I still have a Twitter. I have a Tumblr, which I use more than Twitter. I have an Instagram now for the first time ever. I've never used it. I don't like it, frankly. But I know that it's where Brian David Gilbert is most active.
I think the only place he is active, actually.
He's posted on Blue Sky at least twice.
Has he?
So
maybe I don't know if I follow him. It's. I know he's not on TikTok because he made a whole video about it, and then I saw that video on TikTok, and I was like,
"Wait,
no, don't steal the I'm not on TikTok video."
I'm on all social medias, but mainly YouTube. On Patreon, but the chances that someone's going to watch this interview and without seeing anything else of mine go, we'll throw him some money. It's not, that's not one to plug.
But maybe they'll see this interview. There's no way they haven't seen your work already. But they go and watch a bunch of your stuff immediately, and then they're like, oh, and he also has a Patreon where I can go give him money.
It's very kind of them to be at almost an hour in if they've not seen my animations and don't know anything about this.
I do think there are people, well, I'm not going to say that. I was going to say, I think there are people who just watch everything that I post. I think there are. I don't understand them, and I love them.
There are.
Harry Blue, whatever we're calling you at this point, thank you so much. This is absolutely delightful. I'm so excited for Deep Space Discounts. Also excited because, unlike many other projects, when I tell someone I'm excited about it, I can actually keep up with it because it's going to be 5-7 minute episodes, and that's a thing I can consume. A lot of times when I talk to someone, they're like, we've got our podcast. And I'm like, I would love to say I've got an extra hour in my week for this. I don't know where it is, though. But I'm really excited for Deep Space Discounts. Seasons 1 through Infinity on Amazon Prime coming soon.
For now,
thank you so much.
On the YouTube channel,
yes.
It's going to be weekly. The first episode is going up January 3rd, and then the 5th and final episode episode is going to be whatever 5 weeks on from that is, January the 30th? I don't know.
The 2030th is the correct date. Amazing. Thank you so much. I don't know how to end an interview, so I'm just going to hit stop recording. Do you want to do a last minute weird animation for us of like you holding up a sign or whatever it is?
What have I got? I've got this.
Yeah, and that's perfect. Perfect. A perfect way to end.